We begin this morning in the Middle East, where as of 2 hours ago, a ceasefire is now in effect, increasing hopes that after more than 2 years of conflict, the war in Gaza may finally be coming to an end. Israel's government overnight approved phase 1 of President Trump's peace plan, which will see the release of all hostages being held in Gaza by Hamas in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel, and staged withdrawal of Israeli forces to an agreed-upon line. CBS News reporter Haley Ott is following this for us from Tel Aviv and joins us once again. Haley, good morning. This ceasefire just came into effect in the past 2 hours, so how does it appear to be holding?
Good morning, Errol. And I just want to let you know we're here in Hostage Square where people are gathering. It's coming up to the Friday Shabbat holiday, and they've started playing some music. So that's what you may hear going on around us. About that ceasefire, there had been some confusion about when it was actually due to come into effect. The government here initially said it started last night after that Israeli government vote, but the Israeli military this morning has now clarified that it came into effect at noon local time, which, as you said, was about 2 hours ago. We heard from our colleagues in Gaza this morning that there were still IDF attacks earlier today. Before 2 hours ago, health officials in Gaza reported that at least 8 people had been killed today. But now we're hearing things are quiet. People in Gaza appear to be able to move back towards Gaza City using certain routes they hadn't been before. People have been warned to avoid certain areas and not approach Israeli troops because it could be dangerous. But they've also been told not to enter the water. But so far, things appear to be holding.
And we have been here a few times before in which there is a ceasefire, an exchange and release of hostages, and things fall apart. So as far as this deal is concerned, when will the next piece of phase 1 hit, and what will then trigger phase 2?
Yeah, so we're currently in a window of a number of deadlines. What's happening now that phase 1 has been approved by the Israeli government is that Israel is withdrawing to a defined line within Gaza. They have a 24-hour window to do that. And there's also a 72-hour clock that's starting for Hamas to release the hostages. President Trump has said he expects those hostages to be released Monday or Tuesday. We know the president himself is expected to visit the region in the coming days. We also expect the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza to increase. We know the UN has been standing by with tons and tons of aid at the border ready to go as soon as they're allowed. And as you said, this is phase 1 of the deal, but that is the phase that everyone is focusing on right now and trying to get over the finish line. There is that 20-point White House peace proposal this phase 1 doesn't include many of the provisions in that proposal, which are much more complicated in this region, like how Hamas will disarm, whether it will continue to play any part in Palestinian politics, and who will eventually govern Gaza. But all of that will come later. For now, the people here in Israel and in Gaza are relieved that this deal appears to be working.
Yeah, and I can see that sense of excitement building into the weekend there in Hostage Square, specifically in anticipation of the release of the surviving hostages. Haley Ott, thank you so much. Also, President Trump is headed to the Middle East Sunday. He's planning to attend the signing of the peace agreement in Egypt. He's also expected to address Israel's parliament in Jerusalem at some stage. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Debora Patta brings us more on all of this from Jerusalem. Good morning to you once again, Debora. From your vantage point, is it evident yet that the ceasefire is in effect? And what are the benchmarks for this important first phase?
It's been just over 2 hours, Errol, and so far it is holding. But we should point out that right up until the final hours before it came into effect this morning, Israel continued to bomb Gaza. The deal stipulates, too, that Israeli troops must withdraw to an agreed line. And there are also reports that as the Israeli army retreated, it set fire to homes along the way. Now, this was always going to be a fragile ceasefire. Palestinians have been longing for this moment, but it's not easy to erase decades of mistrust on both sides. There is a fear among some Palestinians that once Israel gets the hostages back, they could return to war. And you will have seen the statements from Hamas insisting that the U.S. continues to provide guarantees that Israel will uphold the terms of the deal. Now, as you know, there are still very thorny, outstanding issues to be negotiated, including disarmament and governments on the side of Hamas. And in Israel, right-wing hardliners and Prime Minister Netanyahu's government want to annex Gaza, even though, Errol, the deal makes it very clear that that's off the table.
All right, Debora Patta in Jerusalem, thank you. Senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins us now from the North Lawn of the White House with the Trump administration's perspective on this. Weijia, this time yesterday, we were talking about how much of a win this is for President Trump. So what are his plans over the next few days and the next few steps in this peace deal?
Well, good morning, Errol. Good morning, everyone. As you mentioned, President Trump plans to head to the Middle East on Sunday. First, he'll go to Egypt to attend the actual signing of that peace agreement, and then to Israel, where he has accepted an invitation to address the Knesset, which is Israel's parliament. He would be the first American president to do so. In terms of what happens next, Errol, the president was asked about this just yesterday because obviously, just as he said, when he was asked about phase 2, he said the focus right now is really to make sure the hostages are released, to make sure that phase 1 is executed, which also includes the first withdrawal of some IDF troops to a certain line. As for phase 2, what's next? He said he didn't really want to talk about it, but he added that there would be disarmament, that there would be pullbacks even more. Of course, those are just 2 of the many other points in his 20-point peace plan, and we don't exactly know how everything is going to be organized because, again, he is so focused on just getting these hostages back. But there is still much to do, Errol, when it comes to implementing a long-term peace deal, and it's unclear exactly how long that could take. We're also waiting to hear how Hamas feels about several of those 20 points in the president's plan.
Right, and I guess we'll all watch to see if we at least get through this weekend as everything holds. Weijia, great to see you. Thank you very much.